What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, we're going to pick off right where we left off after we've installed Sublime Text, or if you've installed Visual Studio's code. But regardless, we have our text editor over here to the left, and we have our terminal to the right. So now, what I want to discuss in this video is first and foremost identifiers in C, and I kind of made a couple of bullet points here to give you the general idea. So we're going to talk about identifiers in C, we're going to talk about the character set, in particular the ASCII character set, and then we're going to talk about that C is a free format language and kind of what that means and how to go about your code. So an identifier refers to a name given to entities such as variables, functions, structures, etc. Okay, identifiers must be unique. They are created to give a unique name to an entity to identify it during the execution of the program. For example, so what would an identifier look like? Int is not the identifier portion. We're going to give it a variable name such as variable. That's something simple. And you have to kind of follow the rules, as I mentioned. Can consist of letters, digits, and underscores. Must start with letter or underscore, so you cannot start it with the one with a number, and it's also case sensitive. For example, we can give it an integer, since we're defining a variable to be an integer. Okay, think of it like it's like a variable is a placeholder, right? It's like, think of it like it's a code word. So variable is an integer. What do we want to assign it a value of? We can say 5 because 5 is an integer. We can save this, go over here and do gcc practice.c as from the last video, follow the same thing and do ./a.out, and everything works fine, right? We're not printing anything. We're really just looking to make sure that gcc practice.c compiles. But now what happens if we repeat it? As I mentioned, we cannot repeat this. Even if we change the number over here, go over here, we're gonna get an error. Read definition of variable. Previous definition is here, and it gives you where the previous definition is. So now, in order to avoid that, we can, since C is case sensitive, we can define a new variable with capital V, save our file, gcc, and everything works fine. So that's just something to look out for. And again, we can do variable with the 1 v variable, and you can see already the text editor right there is actually telling us that something is up. Go over here, gcc error expected identifier or, and yeah, just right here, must start with the letter or underscore. So now let's change this with an underscore, and we should not have any trouble compiling. And so that's pretty much an overview of identifiers in C. And again, you do not need to actually assign this variable in a sense. You can take that away, go over here, GCC, and everything's perfectly fine. Now, I will cover more about actually defining your variables type later on in the video, but just know that you have characters. You have int32, I believe. Actually, you don't have int32. You have integers, characters. You can have a double. You can have a decimal. Nope. You can have a float, and so on. Other types of keywords that you can have in your program. But putting that to the side, let's go over here and continue on to the next kind of high point I want to cover. The character set that I'm going to be describing in this video is the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, otherwise known as the ASCII character set. And so, touching on this point, all the letters are in consecutive order. Capital letters are grouped together, while small letters are also have their own group, right? And so, really quick before we dive into, let me pull this one up, and this is the one I used when I was in undergrad, so at least for your introductory courses, because they kind of make you play around with this. But I think it is good to know kind of where are these numbers coming from, right? So let's just look into the actual A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on and so forth. So touching on this, we see right away that the decimal value is 65. The hex number is 41. The octal number is 101. HTML, I actually don't know about that one, so we'll just ignore it. But right here, CHR, we're seeing that the character is A. So A corresponds to a value in either decimal, hex, or oct. And you can see how they're all grouped together, so A, B, C, and they're just incrementing by 1. But we'll leave that for that, and we'll see how A as well has a corresponding number, and they increment, so on and so forth. And you have your other sets of other stuff. And something we'll see later on is over here on these characters. So null, 0, we'll go on to that. And actually, we will see we have tab. Tab has a value of 9, backspace 8, and we have all these other things that you can kind of refer to so you can see kind of what's going on. So I'll put that to the side and continue on over here. So for our example, I'm going to uncomment this out. And actually, I pressed that key when I should not have pressed that key. But I'm going to go over here and uncomment this value. So what are we doing here? So as before, when I ran a hello world, we didn't have a comma. All we had was printf, we had our quotation marks, and we just had a statement like that, right? But we want to actually print something other than that. And now for this video, I'm actually going to show you, we're going to print the character A, because A is a character, just one. It's not a string. It's not a string of characters. A is just a single character. So that's where we're going to do our % with a C, and just follow along with me. Well, I'll cover this later, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to save, and we're going to compile. No errors, always great. A.out, and you see how the letter A, and actually let me make it a little bit nicer so we can look at it better. Really quick, there we go. So you can see how A is printed up here. So now what happens if we want to print its decimal value? And if you recall, looking at our sheet, capital A corresponds to 65. So how are we going to see 65? So all we have to do is, instead of printing a character with a %C, we're going to do a %D. Okay. And again, I'll go over those later, but for now, let's just go with that and see what happens when we compile. So no errors, and we have A, and we have 65. So you can kind of see how the character set is interpreted, and I think it's important at least to understand the very basics of it. But moving on, now a good point I want to touch on is how if you've been exposed to other languages such as Python, which is not a free format language, meaning in Python I could not do something like this. In Python it would be x equals 10, you have to do a new line, you can do y equals 20, you have to do a new line. Whereas in C, you could do something like, you can do int x equals 10, your semicolon is very important. Instead of doing a new line, you can just do int y equals 20. So since this is actually Python code, I'm going to go ahead and comment that out because that is invalid syntax. But we're going to go ahead and run GCC, and you see how we get no errors. And so in reality, if I go over here and I comment all of this out, if I go over here and comment all this out, just to prove to you that we can do hashtag include, we can go over here and we can do standard input output.h, we can go over here and we can do int main void. We can put it all together in one line and do printf hello world. can return 0, all in one line, and we can go ahead and compile this. Oh, I forgot actually the semicolon right there. Compile this and it will work perfectly fine. Hello world. And so that's kind of what I mean by that. The C language is a free format language. You're not going to get errors because you have one too many spaces. You're not going to get errors. See, as opposed to other languages where in Python you would not be able to do that because it's kind of based off of the syntax that we have it in, like the amount of spacing and all that. But for this video, I think that's a great stopping point. Kind of covered the basics and the overarching, I guess, basic concepts to it. And just to reiterate, so in C, we have a thing called identifiers. Our identifiers are pretty much names we want to call things that our program wants, that you want your program to do. And again, just very in the simplistic format of what is a program. Think of a program as a set of instructions. You write these sets of instructions and you want the computer to do these instructions. So just keep that at the back of your mind whenever you're coding. It's you're telling the computer what to do. Okay, but yeah, so thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something in this video. I'll try to post the next video, and the next video, actually, I believe I'm going to cover more about what is this, kind of the things I've been mentioning, like, so what is main, what is void, what is integer, kind of these key words in our program. And then we'll after that, we'll probably jump into functions and go on to that until I go and do a little, like, actual program from start to finish, so you can kind of see the flow of it and the logic. So again, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, goodbye.